all the things I've manifested since moving here, like I needed to do this. The universe was like, no, we're not giving you anything until you leave. Like, no, stop applying to jobs here and like being half in, half out. Like you're doing the work, but like you have to go. And when I went, it was like, whoosh.
Welcome to the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips. As a leading manifestation advisor with a process that's, radically different from the old New Age model, mine is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and my energetic gifts. I created this podcast to help you expand your subconscious limiting beliefs about the potential of deserving the manifestations you're calling in. Therefore, you're tuning into this podcast series to show your subconscious that anything you desire is possible. And by pressing play, you've already started the process of manifesting it. This has been the most nourishing week. I arrived up to the Forest Retreat House and it was just a bed of snow. And it was so beautiful because I've been joking this whole season that I think I've had 3 rainy days. I keep catching the sun everywhere I go, even in laughable places like Seattle. So to get up here and just have the messaging being so quiet, inward, calm. It didn't even really rain when I was in London, but I did experience that. I realized that's a part of what I love about the UK so much is, I talk about this, but in LA, it's so sunny. So it's like, go, be on, do, and my body really craves having that inward energy, especially for fall and winter. So being up here, I've really received that. And we had a great work week, and then I just took the rest of the time to really rest and hike the river, which I show a lot on Instagram, and spend time with family and just really come back into homeostasis after traveling. But a really exciting thing that has been lighting me up all week is we sent out a survey to everybody, members, non-members, last week. And we really should do this a lot more often because we want you all to be the voice of the brand that helps direct where we go. We had all of these lofty ideas in our Q1 meeting. And then when we sent these out, you guys came back to us with exactly what you wanted. And we're like, okay, take all of that off the table for now. And let's just really focus on what everybody wants and needs. So I have to say a huge thanks to everybody who participated because we got such amazing and insightful feedback. And it, to me, just feels really cool because it feels like a collaborative experience when you use and exercise your voice to tell us exactly what you're looking forward to and want more of. And now we just get to go and get creative and bring it to you. And a couple of highlights that were really exciting to see, which we already knew in the past, but 90% of those who are Pathway members and they do the work every week regularly, they definitely manifest from their list. So that, whenever I meet people on the street and they're like, I do your work or the podcast changed my life, I'm like, yes, but are you manifesting? That's always my first question because that really is our mission here, is to be the go-to brand for practical, approachable, and accessible manifestation. That's why we price what we do rather than having, really big a la carte prices like everybody else does for their workshops. They're like $300 for this, $250 for that, $1,000 for this. And we're like, well, no, what we'll do is we'll make this work less than $1 a day for somebody to do monthly. So that was really exciting to hear that. And just to break down some stats even more, 60% of people manifested something big off of their list under 6 months. 31% of our members manifest something within the first month of joining. So it's working, which we know because we get so much feedback, but this is really where the rubber meets the road and we get to hear from you. And so that really lit us all up and it makes it feel like we're doing our purpose and we're giving our hearts and souls and it's being returned with your life expanding and shifting and manifesting. Well, let's get into today's guest. We're so grateful for the feedback everybody has been leaving about co-host Jessica Gill, who will now be taking majority of the process episodes. The process episodes turned out to be what's perceived as, I think, one of the favorites, because it's where you get to hear actual members in the pathway. And once they've manifested what they want, their entire process of using the workshops and this formula and terminology to receive it. So today is no exception. Today's guest is Salwa Kyobe. We actually were introduced to her. Not only did she submit, like most of you do, there's a link below if you'd like to submit to become a process guest. We love you guys because you're the biggest expanders that actually show us in real time how to do this work in order to manifest. So we were introduced to Salwa originally through Amanda Blair, who's a really big, part of the brand, and you've heard her episode before. I have it linked below as well. If you haven't, it's incredible on dating. It's a process episode, and she goes deep into attachment styles. That's what she coaches on. And she's extremely versed in this work. Actually, there's some fun collaborations coming up soon for members, so look out for that. But so Salwa shares her journey of unblocking, expanding, passing tests, and welcoming in her dream manifestation, which was a move to New York City, her dream career, and financial abundance. And then Salwa shares with Jessica how perhaps the most magnetic thing that's happened to her since doing this work is a newfound self-worth and pride for being exactly who she is. And we'll get much deeper into that in this episode. So I'm going to kick it off to Jessica and Salwa now.
Welcome, everyone, to the Expanded Podcast. Jessica Gill here, and today we are interviewing Salwa Kyobe.
Yes.
We are so excited to have you here, and you're friends with Amanda Blair. That's correct?
Yeah, that is. I met her in Los Angeles. After I started doing Lacey's work, I sent her a DM. For some reason, I guess maybe it was like a ping. I was like, I want to talk to her. And I did, and we met for coffee, and we've been friends ever since. She's the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Do you go to Unblocked Villages with her?
I do, yeah.
I know she tries to host them in Brooklyn sometimes.
Yeah, I went to her last one. It was fantastic. Or the last couple that she held in Brooklyn. They were great. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. It's always so exciting hearing other people are able to meet up and do the work and talk to each other about it. It's just, it's awesome.
Yes. No, she's definitely been on the ride with me, rediscovering my emotions. So it's good.
Love it. So as you probably know from listening to the podcast, we like to start off by cosmically profiling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your sun, moon, and rising sign?
Yeah, my sun, I'm a Leo sun, I'm a Pisces rising, and a Virgo moon. Yeah.
So how do you feel about that sort of combination? How do you, I'm still so, I thought I knew a lot about astrology. And then the more I went into it, I was like, maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did. I guess I know my own chart more.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that combination? How do you feel like they balance each other?
Well, it's funny because and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I was born in Uganda and my mom cannot for some reason locate my birth certificate. And so
Wow.
I've been, and we've had it, it's been in her possession, but for some reason, when I was getting really into astrology, she's like, I don't know, I've looked everywhere. And I'm like, what time was I born? And she's like, why do you care so much? I'm like, Mom, you don't understand. I need to know where the stars were when I was born, and she doesn't get it.
Oh.
And my dad was just like, you were born at 9:50 p.m. I'm sure of it. And that's just the number either he's believes and has committed to, hasn't changed his mind. So that's just kind of what I'm going off of. But I think it really makes sense for me. I mean, I have a pretty outgoing Leo personality, but I come off a little softer. I think with the water. And then the Virgo, I mean, when I read about it, especially through CoStar, it all kind of, it makes sense to me for sure. Especially
Totally.
my Virgo moon and my kind of neurotic need to be very organized and routine and all those things. So yeah, it makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah. I have Capricorn in my chart. So that's keeping me
super
diligent and focused.
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, no, definitely pans out.
Very cool. So yes, let's get back into where you're from, what your cultural upbringing background is, and all of that amazing stuff.
Yeah. So I was born in Uganda, East Africa. And I moved to America when I was 3 or 4. My parents actually came before me. So basically, I have an older brother who's also born there. My younger brother was born in the States. And my mom and dad left me and my older brother when I was probably for like a year. When I was, I want to say, like, I don't even know now, kind of all, I get a different story every time. It was kind of a pretty traumatizing time for my parents. So basically, I
Yeah.
was born in Uganda, and then they left to come to America to just kind of like figure things out and like, get their bearings and everything before they sent my older brother and I over to live with them. Yeah, they left in the middle of the night actually, and my mom told me,
Oh, they didn't want to say
yeah,
goodbye.
basically. So once I started doing Reparent, that's really what helped me open up to talking more to my parents, especially like my mom, and like, seeing them from just like as children in a more compassionate point of view. But, anyways, yeah, so my mom said when I was asking those questions when I was doing Reparent that I woke up in the middle, I like never woke up at night, and then I woke up in the middle of the night. It's like I knew, I guess, that they were leaving, and then I was like crying, and she almost didn't leave.
Oh,
And then I didn't see them for years. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a little bit of a trauma right there. But
yes, 100%. Oh my gosh.
yeah. And then, so I lived with one of our family friends for a while until we went back to America. And then my mom said when, I saw them again, she's just like, yeah, I'm your mom. And I was just kind of like, okay, you know. But I was still young. So I
Wow.
think, after a while it was fine. But yeah, it's so interesting to think about.
It's like reacclimating back to and like understand like who is this person to me? What are they
Yeah.
doing? Can I trust them? And
Right. Like you left me. Exactly.
yeah, so
I
much
think that's
there.
when like my avoidant, I lean more towards um, avoidant attachment. If anyone knows, Amanda talks about it a lot too, and she knows that very well about me. But I feel like that's probably when it kind of started. I'm assuming. I mean, I'm sure it can start much earlier, but just that moment, I feel like that probably added to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And then did you have like other family who was in Uganda who was like watching out for you guys while your parents were kind of setting up everything in America?
Yeah, I mean, I had aunts and uncles, and then I had a family friend, my mom's family friend, they were basically like our sisters. I mean, in our culture, we call everyone like aunt or auntie, if they're
Hmm.
really close to the family. So she raised me for, at least a year. And my older brother, he was mostly with my grandma, my mom's mom. It was a lot harder for him because he's 5 years older than me. So
Right.
when we went back to my mom, and you know how grandmas are, like I don't have any living grandparents anymore, but she was a lot easier, and he was living with her for a long time. And so
Right.
when he came back and lived with my mom was like very strict in a good way,
Mm.
but she's African, she like doesn't really mess around. And I think it was much harder transition for him because he was just like, you are not my mom. Like grandma's my mom.
Right. Like I don't why should I listen to you at
Yeah,
this point?
exactly.
Yeah.
And he was older, so it was more of an adjustment for him, and they never really reconciled, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah, but
It's so hard. That
mhm.
whole process of even coming to America and setting up and trying to feel stable and then bringing such young kids into it. I mean, that's such a hard process. It's crazy. It's so much strength to the parents to even be able to like kind of go on that course too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like they're just trying to survive, And so when I'm talking to my
Hmm.
parents about, how we're brought up, and especially doing Lacey's work, it's so crazy to think that they were going through all of that and they didn't, you just suppress and you move on because all you're trying to do is literally just survive and
Yeah.
make sure that your kids are okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then how did you feel finally coming here? How was the adjustment for you? Because where in America did you move?
Yeah. So I grew up in Seattle. And I mean, I was still young. I didn't speak English when I came here. And
Mm,
now, my native language is called Luganda. And it's such a bummer because my parents really acclimated. They didn't keep up with me in terms of making sure that I continued learning the language. So I understand a little bit, but I don't actually speak it fluently. So that's on my bucket list because we're supposed to go back again. We went last summer. We're going to go again this next 2020. But
so cool.
yeah, so I mean, I think I remember I just like didn't know English. And so I was at school, and I remember my mom told me one really funny story of like I left a jacket on the bus, like from a field trip, and like I just couldn't relay the message to them at all. And then they finally got what I was trying to say. And then I went home, and I'm like pretty sassy. I think it's died down, but I'm still a little sassy at heart. So I think, especially when I was younger. And so I was just like, they don't understand it. They're so dumb. I was trying to tell them that I left my jacket on the bus, and I'm like speaking in Luganda. My mom's just like cracking up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm assuming it was challenging. And I went to, my parents took me to a private school. They moved here. My mom especially was very much like had a specific way of how I should be like brought up and raised, like where I should go to school and education, all these things that she didn't grow up with that she really wanted me to have. And so, I was the only Black kid in the school. Maybe there was like another one. I think there was another girl I remember vaguely, maybe another guy, very few. I was like the only one in my grade. It was a very, very small school. My grade was probably like 30 kids. And,
Wow.
you grow up, and unless they move or someone, changes schools, you're with those kids. It was like K through 8. So I think it was an adjustment. I was young, so I don't remember a lot, but I'm assuming, that was an adjustment to make, like coming to America, not speaking the language. No one looks like me,
I mean, that's definitely got to be so difficult. And then even kind of like figuring out your identity and what that means and your language and the barrier and all of that kind of stuff too. Definitely challenging, and definitely probably made you so much stronger, therefore, afterwards, especially going through the work and healing some of that stuff too.
Yeah, for sure.
So bring us to how you discovered Lacey's work and how you kind of got involved in the To Be Magnetic community.
Yeah. So I found Lacey through, I can't remember which podcast it was. I want to say maybe it was Almost 30 that I was listening to it. And, once you're ready, things always. So I was like already, I want to say, I think it was like the beginning of 2017 where I was like hit a low point of like, I really need to strengthen my emotional health and my emotional well-being. And like, I cannot sustain this like lone wolf mentality of just suppressing everything that I feel. Like it was getting really hard, and I finally just hit a breaking point. And I remember actually specifically because I just got on a trip with one of my best friends, Ivan, and we went to Barcelona, and it was the best trip. And then we stayed through New Year's, and I just had this crazy moment where I was just like, oh my God, I'm going through another year like this. Like I can't. And I just like broke down. I was like literally on the floor crying. And he was just like, it's going to be okay. And that was the year I was like, okay, I am going to work on this. And so I slowly started, doing all these, listening to different, people and starting small. And then I think once I found Lacey, I was ready to really dive deeper. And so I was listening to their podcast. And then I was like, wow, I need to do this. And so I started doing her work, and then I saw her at Cat Beauty when it was still open in LA. And I was just like, this is,
cool.
Yeah, I'm like, this is exactly what I need. And so I started with Reparent before the pathway. So yeah, I think it was 2018 maybe is when I started. Can't remember now.
Yeah. That Reparent, now it's Inner Child, but that workshop was the first one I started with as well. And it just really like, oh my gosh, like each day that you go through, there's like so much you're learning about yourself. And even just like, I felt like I was learning so much about like the normal functioning of each stage of development.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
I thought I knew what that was. And then going in, I'm like, oh yeah, I did need that at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, whoa, I can't believe that this happened. And then you start to look at your grown-up self, or I was looking at myself now, but talking to my younger child, and that's really, really powerful. And really, it was really hard. It was so hard.
Yeah.
But it's a powerful one. Like I've done it several times. I'm probably actually due to do it soon. Actually, I think it's a great one to go back to time and time again and kind of see where you're at and what really still needs some healing, or like what stage in your life. Yeah.
100%. I agree to that so much. I just did it again right before coming home for the holidays because I'm I'm going to
Nice.
see a bunch of family.
Yeah,
This is going to be a good idea.
Oh my God. Yes.
Oh,
You're like, how
that's
much have you learned? And
amazing.
then you go home and you're like, oh, right. Yep. Still
Got some more
stuff.
Yeah,
But it's also nice to go
100%.
home and realize that like where you are. And
hmm
and I think that's one of the most beautiful things about her work is I have less judgment. I'm kind of just, it's more almost, I mean, not all the time. It can also be very frustrating and challenging, but I've found myself to be more inquisitive as opposed to judgmental. So I'm just like, oh, like what does that mean actually? Like, why do I feel like this? Where does that come from? I know better, and like I know how I can love myself through the situation and also move forward and learn as opposed to just being pissed or annoyed and kind of stuck in that place.
Yeah, 100%. And even like through that anger or that irritation, it all goes down to kind of like a pain too,
Absolutely.
like a hurt. And it's like, okay, let's find the hurt. What's going
I know,
on?
I'm like, another wound? Damn it. Yeah.
When did you first craft your first manifestation list?
Oh, yeah. So I was living in LA and I had lived there for 7 years, and I've always wanted to move to New York. That was like my dream since I was in high school when I first went with my family. When you just go somewhere and you just know that that's where you have to be. Like I always wanted to leave Seattle, always. I was always complaining. I'm like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And I just knew it. And when I went to New York for the first time for a trip, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I felt that way about only two places in my life, and that's New York and Italy.
Wow.
And so I was in LA, I'm doing her work, and like little things were, coming through here and there. But I was also had just recently left a job. I traveled to Italy for the first time, and I came back and I was looking for work, and I was, applying to jobs in New York and LA and all these places, or no, mostly those two. But I was still nervous to go to New York because I was like, I have to have this, I have to have this, I have to have this. But no one in LA was hiring me. I mean, crickets. Like the only job interviews I had were from one was based in Seattle, and that actually came through during the time where I was kind of flirting with Seattle. I went home for a couple weddings, and I was like, do I need to move home? Because Seattle is so beautiful, and I really truly miss my family and my friends, but I also knew I needed to move to New York. And so when I made that decision, and it's funny because I was actually talking to Amanda when she was still in LA for a little bit, and I was like, I gotta go. And she's like, just pick a date. And I was like, okay. And I remember going in my car, and I talk to the universe out loud all the time. And I was like, okay, universe,
Love that.
I'm like, pick a date for me. I don't know when, but just pick the date. Probably the next day, one of my best friends calls me and is like, hey, so we listened to this one other podcast. They're on tour. She's like, would you want to go to New York? I know you're not working right now, but like, I'll buy you the ticket to the podcast and we'll go. And like, so-and-so, our other friends wanted to go. And she's like, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, I'm going. And I bought my one-way plane ticket, and then I moved. And
oh my gosh.
that's really when the manifestation really, because I was calling in a job. That was what I was really focused on, was career and money. And
yeah,
it didn't happen until I moved to New York that I was interviewing more than I ever have in my entire life. There was so much motion happening. It was also a very challenging time. My 1 year was on December 13th, so not that long ago. And it's funny to think about where I was now as opposed to like the difference. It's just like a world apart. But yeah, and then I bought a one-way plane ticket and I moved, and I didn't even have, I jump off cliffs. Like even when I moved from Seattle to LA, I just got an internship and I was like, I'm moving. And it's funny because I wasn't doing her work then, but I remember saying, I'm going to LA after college. I'm like, I'm not. And I was moving in with my best friend, the other one who also went with me to New York. And I said, I'm not going to sign a year lease because I'm moving to LA in the fall. I can only sign 6 months, which was challenging to find, an apartment for only 6 months. And then we looked at this one apartment, which was beautiful. And they said, we can't do 6 months. And I said, no. And then they called us back and they're like, we love you. We'll do 6 months. And I'm like, oh, I'm looking back. I'm like, hey, I was doing the work. I didn't really know I was doing it.
That's so
yeah.
Cool.
So when I'm kind of done with something, I do tend to jump ship. That's just kind of how I roll as a person. And so, but New York was definitely like the biggest cliff because it was I romanticized it so much, and it was such a big dream that I was just nervous that it wasn't going to work out, and that I was being
Yeah.
rash, but it has worked out. It's just as romantic as I knew it would be. And I say that till this day. I'm so, so in love with the city. I know I'm supposed to be here. And as challenging as it is sometimes, and how much I miss home, but it's just like, it's bittersweet, because I left my family and my other good group of friends in LA. But it's totally worth it because I'm so in love with the city. And I just know that since all the things I've manifested since moving here, like I needed to do this. The universe was like, no, we're not giving you anything until you leave. Like, no, stop applying to jobs here and like being half in, half out. Like you're doing the work, but like you have to go. And when I went, it was like, whoosh.
That's crazy. Yeah, especially if you weren't getting any job feedback in LA, the universe is literally like shoving you out of the nest. It's like, go now.
Like literally not
You're done.
one. And sometimes I was even applying to things that weren't even, I'm just like, seriously? Yeah, no bites, 0 bites at all. But I'm glad that there wasn't, because then I just would have stayed and I would have prolonged it longer and I would have made an excuse not to go or like, all the things that I could have come up with. And so jumping ship was definitely the best and the only way that I was able to make it happen.
It's also so awesome how you really were leaning on your like pings and intuition to help guide you to like saying, asking the universe, give me the date. Like I'll know when I have the date. And then the next day you get the date.
I was like, that's it.
We're done. It's sold. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it was great. And, some of my best friends were able to move me. And so it was great. It was hard after that. There was a rough couple months because I was just like looking for a job, but that was my next big manifestation was, basically the exact job that I was calling in.
So talk a little bit about how you kind of craft your list. Like, do you do more specific? Are you more general? Like, how do you write those out?
Yeah. So I'm a projector, splenic, and I started learning about the non-specific and specific manifestations, and I'm non-specific. And so it's interesting because I've done it both. Like I've written a list and I'm like, I know that I want this. I know that I want to move to like this city, for example, or like, so I've done both. But for the most part, when I'm crafting, I really get in touch with how do I want to feel? And like, so, with my next job, I'm like, I don't know what company it's going to be, but I want to feel like this. I want my coworkers to support me in this way. I want there to be room for growth. I want the company to have momentum. I listed all the things of how I want to feel and what I want to learn and how I want to grow. And, other things like certain benefits or whatever. But it was more of just, this is how I want to feel when I come into work every day or with my person. Cause I'm also calling in a partner. So I lean more towards, the feeling and then leaving it up to the universe to kind of fill in the details, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I'm non-specific as well. And that's kind of the same way I roll is like, I guess I'll add like specific things, but they're not like set in stone things, like wanting to have health benefits is not necessarily a set in stone thing. Like that can look like so many different ways. And I never like put the exact company I want to work for. It's more of like a company that does things like this,
Yeah, absolutely.
More general in that sense.
Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes. I'm like, can I just want this thing? Can I just get this thing?
Yeah.
But then it's nice because I'm also it allows me to be, and maybe for you as well, it allows me to be more, just less controlling too, right? You have to surrender and you have to give in to what it could look like. And the universe always knows. And I mean, you always get far beyond like what our egoic minds can even comprehend or even dream up. So it's good for me to surrender, like be less controlling.
100%. Yeah, that's like such a great lesson, especially if you're like very regimented and grounded and like things orderly.
Exactly.
I'm curious if like all of people who have sort of that in their astrological charts are also non-specific to help balance them out a little bit and like let them surrender. Could be interesting. But yeah, I think that does help a ton. And also, leave some magic in it. Leave some like mystery and adventure in what can potentially happen, and know that, okay, I put this out here, I'm going to do the work, and I trust whatever is coming through is going to be exactly what I was hoping for, looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's fun. It can be challenging, but it's also really fun. And then it just builds your trust muscle because you're like, okay, I said this thing and the universe crafted it in such a beautiful way, even if it was a challenging experience.
Exactly. And you'll probably find in those challenging experiences, you're almost like picking up skill sets of how to cope with things or deal with things or handle things or learn something new, unravel another layer in that challenging part, which you might need for a later manifestation.
Gosh,
that's like
absolutely.
a really big thing.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of shadow work I've had to look at because I'm non-specific, because all of a sudden I'm in this situation. I'm just like, oh, that's probably why I was trying to, manifest that other thing, because I wouldn't have to have gone through this transformation. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, exactly.
So cool. So you got it to New York and then you started crafting your list for the specific or the non-specific job that you wanted. How did that journey go?
Yeah, I moved here and I started interviewing for so many different places. And I mean, it was moving and it was momentum, right? It was anything. I was like, okay, at least I'm interviewing. So I'm doing something right, because nothing was happening for a long time. And then finally the job I ended up getting, I emailed them. It wasn't even on their job. They weren't hiring, because I looked to see if they were. And I was actually talking to a manager. She was just like, do it. Just email them anyway. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I did. And then I got an interview. And then I met the founder the next day. And then I started working within the next month. It was the easiest.
Wow.
I mean, it's also been the biggest learning experience for me. But it's also, it was effortless. Talk about projector, being seen and being welcomed. I did reach out, but it was so effortless. I was like, wait, is this for serious? Is this happening? I don't know. You know what I mean? It was just it just happened so effortlessly.
And you probably also had so much magnetism from jumping off that cliff and finally making that decision, committing and trusting, to get over to New York.
And I forgot, there's a job I had interviewed for before, and they gave me a salary that I was just like, this is not enough. And I had to tell them that in person, and I gave them what I wanted, and they only came up incrementally, and I turned it down. And they had pretty much almost everything on my list except for how much I wanted to get paid. And I said no.
Wow. And that is so hard to do.
Yeah. And I'm talking to my family, my mom's like, so are you, in the position to be saying no? Because you kind of live in New York and you don't have a job. And I'm like, no, I did not come this far to just settle for this thing. You know what I mean? I've been looking for work. I've been doing, I moved across the country, and if I don't feel good about it, and if I'm not in my worth about this, I'm not signing up for this, period. I'm just not. And so I said no. And then so actually I was kind of interviewing for both at the same time, both jobs. But then I said no to that one, and this one came to fruition. It actually finally showed up, and fully for real with the contract and everything. And yeah, and that's how it happened. So, you gotta really stick to your guns. And I think that was a really big trust muscle too, but you just have to ask yourself, what is this all for? And what are you really working towards? Because, all those decisions are propelling you in the direction that you ultimately is leading to your highest and your best, most magnetic self. And that job just wasn't. And I knew that it wasn't, and I knew I would regret it. And I've already had jobs in the past that I was not happy with. You got to break that pattern.
100%.
Yeah. And for me, one of the biggest things that I've learned, especially with this job, because I'm, I actually got this job after I did partnership.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Tell us about that.
So
how long was it between when you said no to the job because they weren't financially matching you to when the other offer officially came in?
Oh, it was probably a week.
Wow.
Yeah. No, maybe a week or two.
Crazy.
It was a scary time, but it was, it felt like an eternity, but no, it happened pretty quickly. And I had actually gotten the universe I forgot about this one, but I actually had gotten another job, which I'm still doing on this side. We can talk about that later if we want to, but and
Yeah.
I was calling in work, and then I started doing social media for this nonprofit that my friend that I used to work with, pushed my way because she knew the executive director who had reached out to her. And granted, I had never done social media management, by the way. So anyone who's listening saying that they can't do a certain thing because they don't have the experience. And I asked, well, I mean, I'm still so proud of what I asked for. And that was great because it held me over, especially with looking in between. It gave me a little bit of a buffer while I was,
It's
looking
kind
for
of like your bridge
it was
job
kind of
in
like a
between.
bridge. Yeah. But it was also the fact that they gave me what I wanted, without experience. Not that they knew that because I knew I'd be able to do the job, was such a confidence boost. I was like, oh yeah, why would I ever, ever, ever in my life again ask for anything less than this ever? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but in terms of partnership, so, Lisa always says that love and money are very intertwined. And I've been single for probably like 6 years. And I can say that now, like shame free, which has been a really big deal. Yeah, because it can be very shameful. And it really touched on my shadow of being undesirable and invisible and all those things. But yeah, I did partnership. And that's when the job that I actually got started to come through when I reached out. And then, they got back to me and that interview process started because, the universe tests. I remember Lisa saying the universe tests you what you respond to most, right? So like I don't respond too much with love as I do with like money, career. So after I did partnership, that's when I started getting more tests in regards to work and like having to say no and all of those things, which I think is really funny. And it's also really taught me because my biggest fear is like losing myself in a relationship, because the one serious relationship I lost myself so much. And, it was a very toxic and relationship that I stayed. I used to think I stayed too long, but obviously I stayed just enough for what I needed. And I think that's when I shut down. I was like, I never want this to happen again. I'm like, I'm never gonna to give all of me to this person. But then I realized after getting this job, and why they're so intertwined is because I give all of me to work and identify myself so much with what I'm doing and where my career is and how much I'm making and all these things. And so no wonder it came in after partnership, because the universe was like, well, this is actually where you lose yourself. It's not, you're so scared of you losing yourself in love, but really you're losing yourself in a job title or, in just like where you are going career wise. And so that's been a really big learning lesson for me. So I think in terms of career, and I think it's really great because it took me a while to realize that. So sometimes I'm like, man, I'm not calling in any dates. I'm not calling any love. And it's just like, oh no, but you are calling in partnership, because work is a partnership, right? It's where we spend all of our time and it's so personal. And so I'm like, I actually did call in a partner, but it just it wasn't an intimate, love relationship, but it was, but it is a partnership. And the way I treat work is very much that, so I'm like, I actually did call it in, and I've been really able to see where I give up parts of me and where I am overflowing so much into work that I have nothing left to give to myself at the end of the day. And I'm like, wow, that's not what I want to do in love. I want to make room for myself in all aspects of my life. And the more that I realize that, the more I've been like calling in more dates and like really great dates. And yeah, it's been a really great experience.
So I'm quickly interrupting this episode to invite you, if you're ready to start your manifestation journey, or if anything you've heard in our manifestation episodes has piqued your interest to begin. We have a la carte workshops in everything from the basics bundle, which is what we recommend to everyone who starts. It's the formula that actually teaches you how to manifest, unblocked inner child, and unblocked shadow. We also have a la carte workshops on love and money. But the real gem is the Pathway membership, because it encompasses every single workshop we have. It's a year-long membership with full access to the few a la carte offerings we have, and exclusive workshops not available anywhere else, such as the daily practice, which is what everybody in the pathway uses, hopefully at least 3 times a week to daily, in order to truly create the new neural pathways that one needs in order to manifest, and houses the library of our deep imaginings, which is our unique hypnosis process that allows you to get into your subconscious and overwrite those old neural pathways, creating the new ones. You can use our special code, EXPANDED, all caps, EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first a la carte workshop purchase or $20 off your first month of the pathway. Again, that's all caps, EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
It's almost like you're having like little tests within the job of like, can you turn off for the night and take time for yourself?
Yeah.
Can you separate those boundaries more clearly? And like, once you start doing that, I bet you partnership stuff will like come through so quickly. Because it's almost like you're taking a relationship course with your work.
It is. Oh my gosh. Jessica, it really is, because I'm like, can you turn off your email? You know, I'm like, like that frantic, unsteady. And even if you love your job, like you can love your partner, you can love whatever, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't take a toll after a while,
Yep.
you know, on your well-being.
100%.
And I'm just like, if I ask myself, who am I outside of this job? And I don't have an answer, like that's a problem. And same with a relationship, if you can't answer who you are without this person, like that's something that we need to look at, you know? And so that's definitely, I feel like I'm actually in a little rock bottom and I can feel it. And, and this is the lesson that I'm learning for sure. I know 100% this is a lesson because I've been here before, but I've discovered way much more now. And I'm like, this is the lesson. Like, and it's great too, because my rock bottom has obviously up leveled, because my rock bottom a year ago was being in New York, not having a job and scrambling. And now I have all those things. I'm financially stable. I just, you know, I'm looking for my own place now. I manifested a sublet. I'm living by myself in Soho, in New York, in a rent stabilized apartment.
Oh, the best. I love that neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I'm just like, wait, how did I do this? And so that's also how I know I'm so close to other things, because my own apartment that I'm going to sign a lease for is so close. I'm like going on more date, like everything is so close. And I know like this rock bottom, like the other side of this is something big, because I'm calling in something big. And I just know I need to really dive deeper into what this is teaching me.
100%. What is a rock bottom? Like you said, you are pretty positive that you're in a rock bottom right now. Like, what do rock bottoms feel like to you? Like, what indicating factors do they feel like when you're in that state?
Yeah, I'm in a rock bottom when it's harder for me to find like grace and joy. And I just feel defeated and I feel bitter. I feel, you know, I guess kind of bitter, like, oh, I should be doing this, or like I should have this. And I'm so seeking external validation, like beyond, you know what I mean? I'm just like, I am not going in at all. I'm just like, I'm latching on to anything that I possibly can that's outside of me to just feel something and to feel like secure or to feel safe or to feel worthy. And it took me a while to even realize, I'm like, oh, this is a rock bottom, mostly because usually my last rock bottom was more of like a financial, like safety, I don't have a job situation. And that is not where I'm at right now, because I'm very, you know, financially great, saved up a lot, especially looking for my own place. I feel very secure there. So I was kind of, I think I overlooked it. I'm like, no, I'm not in a rock bottom, like, cause I got money, it's fine. But that's not the reason, you know. I was like, oh, this is because I'm like, I've lost myself, you know? And it just feels, it feels lonely, and but it also feels familiar, because what I'm learning is how I identify myself with external things. And when you do that to an extent, and then you're looking for something in return, that's never going to be enough, you know? Because like they say, wherever you go, there you are. And that hole and that thing that you're trying to fill is not going to come from anything else. And so, yeah, my rock bottom right now is just, how do I stop identifying who I am and my worth with what I'm doing and who I'm doing it with or who I'm working for, a title or a raise or all of those things. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
but I'm getting there.
Yeah, you sound so positive and light
Oh,
and
thank
like
you.
airy for being in a rock. You're like, I'm in a rock bottom. I'm like, girl, you should see my rock bottoms. Damn.
No, I mean,
Like,
I
that's
think
great.
I think it's because it's been happening and like I've been so burnt out. And so right now I feel like I'm coming out of it, one, because I started doing rock bottom again and I'm like, hell yeah, because last time I was in a rock bottom and I did rut and rock bottom. Those are probably the workshops. All of them are fantastic. Those two really were so powerful. I was like, holy shit, I've never felt more seen. This is exactly what I'm going through. This is exactly what I'm doing. Oh my gosh. And so now I was like, of course I need to do rock bottom again. Of course, that is the answer.
Yeah.
But I've also been doing a lot of, I started EMDR this year therapy,
Love it.
and that has transformed my life in a way that I did not know was actually possible. And so I think, using those different modalities and things have also allowed me to, I guess, feel not necessarily prepared, but it's not as heavy as a rock bottom, I guess, because I've just worked through so much this year.
100%. Yeah. And you can kind of see like because you went through the whole experience with moving to New York and getting that job after being kind of like dog paddling and nervous about whether it would come through,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, well, it is possible. I know that it's possible because I've seen it happen. So I just have to figure out like how I can hold my center while everything figures itself out.
Exactly. I'm like, if I can move here without a job or an apartment and a place to live, like, I think I'm fine. Because I have
and then
all
live
of
in
those things
Soho.
now. Yeah, exactly. I know, it's crazy. I'm like, I am so close. I'm so close. But at the same time, knowing that I'm so close, but also, getting that apartment and, obviously living by myself right now is fantastic. And I know that's the only way I'm going to go moving forward. But even when I get my own place that checks all the lists and all those things, it's like, okay, but that's not going to mean anything if I'm going to just latch onto that as like feeling good. It's like
100%.
we can manifest all the things we want. I can manifest my next partner and he could be, all the things. But if I'm not anchored in myself, like it doesn't matter. I'm just going to look for like the next thing to manifest. So I am excited for those, physical things, but it's most importantly that I focus on, who am I outside of all of those things that I'm calling in.
Definitely. It's so crazy how intertwined, like you said, the love and money aspect is.
Mm-hmm.
Because for like my story, like I had I called in a partner first and then called in the dream job to be magnetic.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting shift right before, kind of same thing, but reverse of your story of like, okay, like I already have a partner. So like, what am I so worried about? Like, I know I usually put my worth in the partner aspect of things. And then I'm like, oh, it's because that same sort of like codependence feeling is for the job and like identifying with the job. And now I have to like break that down and sort of re-examine what that means for me and how to shift my job title or my success level with my identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you said something that was so, so, so beautiful when we were talking back and forth and you were kind of telling me your story about how your own identity as like a Black woman has shifted so much through this work.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that because I think that was so beautiful and so powerful.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I grew up, as I mentioned, like I was the only Black kid in school pretty much for the most part. And a part of like my shadow and thing that I've been, working through is that feeling of like belonging, like where do I belong? And I think that also is why I latch on to these other things like work or job, because it gives me a sense of belonging and which I actually didn't really realize until this moment, actually. Anyways, yeah, it gives me a sense of belonging. I think that's what I'm truly looking for, is like, where do I belong? But yeah, so I always grew up just not feeling like seen or noticed. And like, I'm a dark skinned Black woman, and growing up with white people, and the disconnect of, okay, I don't really fit in. And then when you're young, it doesn't really matter until you start to notice, like, oh, actually, like, I don't look like these people. And, I'm being brought up by African parents. We have a very different cultural, like, all the things, upbringing is so different than the white kids I grew up with in America. And then, being young and not feeling beautiful because I was Black, because it was shown to me time and time again, like, beauty doesn't look like you, you know?
Mm.
And when I was in, I think it was first grade, and this one girl, yeah, I think it was first grade, and she said, we were talking about boys. I don't know, you're in first grade. Like, what are you saying? Like, oh, he's cute, cooties. I don't know what we're talking about. And and she's like, well, you can't date him because you're Black and he's white, and you can't date a white person. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
what? And I remember going home, and I remember this moment so clearly. I was like, in our old house, I was talking to my mom, and I was like, Mom, so and so said that I can't marry that person because I'm Black. And my mom was like, that's not true. Like, you can love and be with whoever you want. And I remember her telling me that,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean the damage wasn't done, or like,
Of
something wasn't
course.
imprinted in my mind. So there was, and that, lingered on till even sometimes now, which is kind of like this putting other people on a pedestal and thinking that I can't have what I want because I'm not desirable, because I'm like dark skinned, and having this weird, which is, it's like you're growing up not feeling like you belong in your body and
Yeah.
in who you are. And, that's lonely. And I think, yeah, that was really challenging. But I think that this work really allowed me to admit that out loud to myself, and to
Yeah.
really to dive deeper into what that really means, and to really know that, like, actually I'm beautiful, and I love my skin, and I would not change it for anything, for anyone, ever. And I think deep down,
Yes.
I've always felt that way, because I would tell myself, like, and I would just, I'm like, I'm gonna wake up like this every single day, so am I gonna not like myself every day for the rest of my life? And I would even say that to myself in high school. Like, rationally, I knew that, like, this is who I am, this is what I look like. And that I
Yeah.
love that, but it was always, but then deep down in my subconscious, clearly, after I learned about, where, how that all works, it was still in there that I wasn't beautiful, I wasn't enough, and I'm not going to get this thing because of how I look. And, like, this is not desirable to people. This isn't desirable to America. And when I was younger, like, wishing, like, praying to God, like, please, like, just make me white, like, so everything will be fine, like, I'll be
Oh,
accepted, I'll be all these things. And it's so sad.
so
It's so
sad.
sad. And I think
Fuck.
that
Hmm.
and Lupita Nyong'o, as I mentioned to you, is like one of my, biggest expanders. And if anyone's listened to that podcast episode with Oprah on Super Soul Sunday, and she talked about that same thing. And she recently wrote a book called Salwa. I can't, yeah. And it's like, I don't know, it's basically me. And and I'm just like, and she talked about the same thing. And she is phenomenal. She is so brilliant. She is stunning. She is this powerful, articulate, beautiful, amazing, Black woman who's done so many things. And that really, I was like, wow, like, I'm not the only one. Like, look at this other woman who had similar thoughts. And, but, this work has, one, made me realize that I needed to find those expanders, like Lupita, and people who stand so powerfully in their skin, and with
Yeah.
their head held high and unapologetically so. Yeah, and I feel so much better in my skin, and I don't really care who doesn't like it, you know, like not my problem,
Yes.
like at all.
Yes.
At all. And also it's more empowering now too, because I'm like, okay, this is blocking me from like the thing, like living life, you know, and like being seen, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm ashamed of, you know, my skin color or how, you know, how I don't grow, how I didn't fit in with white people, how I didn't really fit in with Black people, um, that is stopping me from truly soaring and like being my
Yeah.
magnetic self, you know, and like there's like things I want to do and people I want to meet, and like I can't continue playing small and thinking that I don't have room to do so. You know, like my presence is valuable. And so
Yeah.
I also look at it in that way of like, the more I think that I'm not worthy because of, you know, the way that I look, that I'm stopping myself and I'm limiting myself to achieve and be so many different things that I want to be. And so, yeah, this work
Yeah.
is really, and I think it's mostly because even feeling deep down that like, no, I am like, I'm great. I'm all these things. It's really like, okay, now I'm able to say like, actually, no, this is what I actually think about myself. This is how I thought about myself, and no more. And this is what I'm going to do to change that. And also love myself through that and tell my kid self, like, you know, even looking at pictures of me as a kid, I'm just like, oh my God, what would I tell her? Would I say like, you know,
Yeah.
you're too dark. Sorry. Like you should probably just play small. You know, like we would never
Yeah.
say those things
Ever.
So
Ever.
And I'm just like, no, like I tell her now all the time, just like, you are valuable. Like you belong as you are in every inch of this world, no matter what, you know? So like, just keep going. And so,
Mm.
yeah. And it feels really, really good. And it feels good to say that out loud. And it feels good to say it without feeling like I'm ashamed of, you know, cause I'm not, and I'm actually, it's literally made me even want to dive into where I come from even more, like going home to Uganda and like
Yeah.
wanting to really truly dive into my culture and like wanting to find a tutor so I can speak my language and like really embrace, like, you know, when I went home last year, I'm just like, this is where I'm from. Like, this is,
Yeah.
you know, and yeah, it truly warms like my heart. And I'm so proud of me, and, you know, rejecting, you know, what I look like or my skin tone is rejecting my ancestors and my family, and even like the kids that I will have one day, you know, and I'm just like, no, this is not, no, no more. This is not the story I'm reciting any longer.
Oh, I love this so much. So beautiful. And even just listening to you speak on it, like you're so well spoken and confidence like rings through your
Oh,
voice
thank you so
when
much.
talking about, yeah, when just even talking about like, no, fuck that. I am beautiful. Like I am stunning. I exactly how I am right now. I do deserve to be here. I do fit in. Like I just love that. And I think that's so, so, so important for so many people to hear, especially right now, in the way that our world is in
Yeah.
America. And yeah, people just need to feel that love for themselves. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much in
I
there.
know.
But I'm just so proud of you
Oh, thank you.
for coming to that.
Thank you. And I'm really proud of me too. And it feels really good to just say like, you're proud of yourself, you know? And I'm like
Yeah.
looking back of all the things that I suppressed and that I didn't want to look at. And now I'm being interviewed on Lacey's podcast, talking about it
Yeah.
openly and freely. I'm just like, wait, who am I? Like, what is life? And, you know, and it's just like, yeah, I'm so proud of it, of all of the things. And I can't wait, you know, to continue and see what comes next. And I think that once you truly believe that you are worthy, and believe it for yourself, like, one, you're able to strengthen not only the relationship with you, but the relationship with your family, your friends, the world, your perspective. You're kinder, like you see everything from a more gentle gaze and more compassionate, and it's just life changing. You know, like there's no going back. You know, we all know too much now.
Yeah, it's like the falsity layers have been removed. It's like you're not adding them back. They're gone.
No, they're gone. They're gone. And there's, yeah, exactly. Thank goodness.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank goodness. So what advice would you have for someone who's kind of thinking of making that move or is manifesting their next career position or, kind of holding out for their next partner? Like, where would you send them? Where would you direct them? What advice would you give them?
Oh my gosh. I would
Probably a lot.
I know so much. I mean, hopefully you're doing, Lisa's work, of course, but if you're really calling in something that's bigger than you, like one, start with owning those things in all aspects of your life. Like if you're looking for a partnership, know that that is leaking in all aspects of your life. If you are calling in a new job and you've always been paid too little, like that is leaking out everywhere. So maybe, you're interviewing, you're trying to do all those things, but like open your eyes because like you're also being tested and shown where you're doing that elsewhere. Like where else are you playing small? Like where else are you not speaking up for yourself? Where else are you like if you're not going on dates right now, like take yourself out on a date. Like what do you want to do? Like don't hold out on the exact moment or the exact experience or the exact thing that you're calling in because it all weaves itself together. And so like be patient because it's going to manifest in the way that it will, but just know that like even if you're calling in a job, where else where else can you in your life can you look at that you can play big in, that you can be your magnetic self, that you can take risks and that you can take leaps, or you can educate yourself or put yourself in situations that you normally wouldn't be, because it all ricochets off one another. So I think that you should just like be open to all the possibilities because there are infinite amounts of possibilities. So don't be discouraged if, you're calling in a partner and you're not getting dates. There's other aspects of your life that you can look at that's also either blocking or that you need to shine through, I think that's
100%. So well said.
Yeah, I think that's something that I learned. So when I'm just like, okay, I'm not getting this thing, I'm like, okay, well, where else can I play big today? There's so many ways. Where else can I play big? Like, did I make that? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many areas in our life where we can play big in any way. So yeah, take it from there and like look elsewhere, like open your eyes because it's probably right in front of you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's such an amazing, I never even thought of it like that, but like the days that like you're able to turn around places where you feel like you played small or something went wrong is when you can kind of like pick it up and maybe not go back in that same category, but go to a different one and do something really good. Like I know if I get stressed out about something with, let's say, logistics get messed up or whatever, I can go to the gym and have a great workout session. And that'll make me proud again, because I'm like, wow, I can use my physical body to do this. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of pushing it into different aspects.
Yeah, agree 100%. Or pick up a journal and write it out, just like anything. Just be kind to yourself because I think a lot of, and, Lacey talks about that a lot about like finding grace. And sometimes the test isn't necessarily a test the way that we see the test, right? Like the test right now isn't necessarily that you failed or like it's not coming, but it's like, how are you handling yourself through that experience? That is a test, right? Like in its own, and how you are moving forward or how you're reflecting, all of those things, those are all tests to where we are. And it's like, if you're shown something about you and you accept it with open arms and you dive deeper, like you are quote unquote passing the test. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways to look at it, I think.
And even kind of just saying like, okay, so this is happening, but I don't need to go down this like wormhole of shaming myself or having negative self-talk. Like even that is like the different test.
Oh my gosh, yes. Stopping it dead in its track and you're like, you know what? No.
No room for you today.
No room for you. Oh my gosh. And then like, obviously I would also just say to find different people who can help you through it. Like I think I don't know, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't do the EMDR therapy. And, because that was me showing up for myself in a really, really, really big, scary way. And so, find all the different ways that you can truly just show up for you.
Thank you so much
thank you.
for this episode today. I feel like I've learned so much. Like I feel so touched and inspired by your words and your journey. I just am so excited. So excited to share this too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm still just like, did this just happen? Thank you so much for your time. And I've been, it's been great seeing you on the podcast too, and getting to know you on the 2B Magnetic team. So yeah, thank you so much. This was lovely.
Yes, this is absolutely magical. And I just feel like you're going to have some big things coming through in the next year. I feel like it's so close for you. I feel it too. And I'm just,
oh my gosh,
so excited to see how that kind of plays out. Yeah, you'll have to call us back in and let us know how it goes.
Your perfect vision. That's what my yoga teacher says.
Yes. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much and have a wonderful holiday.
You too. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And in case you're not totally ready to join the pathway yet, I wanted to share a few of our free offerings that I'll often suggest to people as a little bit of a blueprint to get them started on their manifestation journey. The first place I like to direct people completely for free is the motivation. You can see it linked below or on our homepage as our testimony library. And it's categorized by different subjects, whether you're calling in career, money, love, wellness, and much more. When you're reading about a member's experience of what they manifested, you're actually seeing to believe and showing your subconscious that that very thing is possible for you. The second place I like to direct people is to the free clarity exercise, which is also linked below. In it, you get to try our own unique hypnosis process, learn about the science, and some journaling prompts. And the best part about this, you'll get a tiny taste of what it's like to go into your hypnotic state, bring your subconscious forward, and create new neural pathways while receiving clarity. And the third thing, if you haven't listened to it on this podcast yet, please go back to the episode titled Manifestation 101, where you'll learn the basics of neural manifestation to truly understand this process. So go ahead and check out those free resources, the motivation, the free clarity exercise, and the episode Manifestation 101, all linked below. And in an effort to make sure to have representation in this process series, go ahead and submit any process testimonials you have, especially to our LGBTQ+ community, our BIPOC, as well as the Ys, which is anyone in the community who is 45 and over. All right, we'll be back next week.